Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? It is August 8th, so it is day 8 of RPG A Day 2017. So what's our question for today? What is a good RPG to play for sessions of 2 hours or less? you know, I feel like the guy that's just not qualified to answer this question. I think maybe the question ought to be, what game master is the best guy to ask to run a one-shot or a session for 2 hours or less? Because clearly I am not him. Uh, it just comes from inexperience running one shots, not really liking one shots, being a huge fan of campaign play. I'm not the best at it. I'm not the best at figuring out a concise like this is what we're going to do here. And when I do it, it tends to be really, really railroady. So I try not. It's a struggle for me. So anyhow, somebody like Sebastian, No Inquisitor, really good at like just boom, there it is. So you probably want to get him to run your 2 hour or less session. And there's lots of other game masters out there, but I remember being really impressed with how he ran his session of All for One Regime Diabolique. But anyhow, let's talk about systems or the games, and I'll talk about the ones that I'm familiar with. And I think I'm probably going to have to reframe this question in a few different ways, so I might not be able to answer it entirely and give you one specific answer. One way you could look at it, I suppose, is what would be the best type of system to run games of 2 hours or less. And, for me, a system that has really involved combat, say, probably not the best because you might end up pretty much having a combat or two combats, and that might be your entire session. And, of course, there's bias here. I'm not fans of systems that do that and get really, really complex in combat where it becomes this big tactical exercise. So, I'm outed already. Yeah, but depends. I suppose if we wanted to just do a tactical little exercise or whatever. But at that point, to me, that's more of a war game. That's not really a role-playing game. So I'm trying to stick to role-playing games. So in that case, one of those might not be the best choice. It wouldn't be the best choice for me. It might float your boat. You might be like, hey, we had two really great combats. That's cool. I'm happy, but not me. So it wouldn't be a game like that. So it'd have to be something that was a lot lighter in rules, especially when it came to things that got really, had the potential to get really granular, like combat and what have you. So it wouldn't be something like that. It might be more like, who knows, it might be more like White Box. It might be more like Labyrinth Lord or Lamentations of the Flame Princess, basic fantasy role-playing game. Jason, are you listening? It might be, certainly we had a hoot. We had this little dungeon crawl kind of thing playing, I think, Iron Falcon, which is, it's arguably White Box. It's one of those really early OSR clones. That was a hoot. We played probably 2 hours. It was great. It was great fun. It was a great little diversion. So that's one type of a good game for a little 2 hour session. Perfect. It's going to be very lighthearted, not very deep, but can be a lot of fun. I suppose another way you could approach this question, or I could approach this question, is like what genre is the best for a 2 hour session. And certainly we had a great time. I remember, especially Anthony's session of Hex, of Hollow Earth Expedition. It was, very bang, bang, bang. We were all of a sudden we're in the Hollow Earth. There were lots of cliffhangers after cliffhangers. Not cliffhangers, but the action never stopped. Just when you thought you could take a breath, something else happened, and it ended on this cliffhanger. And it could have ended in any one of those moments when the snake enters the tree or whatever else happens. Of course, now we're surrounded by the Catmen, eating their god. Not a good idea. But that's like this pulp genre, and it didn't necessarily have to be Hollow Earth Expedition. I think that game does a great job with pulp. But if you have another one you like for pulp instead, fine. I don't think the game matters as much as whatever game system floats your boat. So the idea that you're playing pulp and part of that pulp genre is these constant cliffhangers or potential for cliffhangers, and you're just gonna end it there. And it's like, man, I wonder what happens. But that was cool, a lot of fun. So I suppose really, for me, it's probably genre or system more than what specific role-playing game. And I'm sure there's other genres I'm missing or not thinking of right off the top of my head. But I would say probably something really pulpy, something with where cliffhanger is kind of expected, or something more like I want to say dungeon crawl, but a little more rules light, that sort of thing. And geez, I'm not really sure if there's anything else. Everything else, I really like to kind of have things kind of slowly develop over time. So I like campaigns, and I also like sessions where sometimes you look at the end of it, man, we didn't really roll any dice a couple times, but there's a lot of role play, a lot of fun. So in those cases, those could be those 3 or 4 hour games. So yeah, I'm gonna say something that enforces some kind of a pulpy feel. So like say Hollow Earth Expedition, and let's see what's on my shelf. We'll say Swords and Wizardry. How about that? So those are my two choices today, but I'm sure there's a ton more. What are yours?